Up to now, we have used many functions. We have used the print function to output text to the console. We have used the length function to get the length of iterable objects, and we have used many methods on many different data types. Starting in this video, I will show you how to create your own functions. A function is a named block of reusable code that performs a specific task. If the function is inside a class, it is called a method and it belongs to that class. Functions allow you to organize your code into logical units, making it easy to read, understand, and maintain. Some key features of functions are their signature, which is the definition of a function, including its name, optional parameters, and optional return type. Parameters are variables that are declared in the function signature that act as placeholders for arguments. Arguments are the values that are passed into a function when it is invoked. The body of the function is the code that is executed when the function is invoked. And the return value returns the result or output produced by the function's operations, and if no explicit value is returned, then the none type value is returned. The basic syntax of a function is the def keyword, def, then a function name and a pair of parentheses and a colon. Inside the parentheses, you can put optional parameters. Then below the function definition, you would put your code to execute and any optional return values. We have some examples of function syntax here where we have the def keyword followed by a function name and an empty set of parentheses. And then indented below it would be the code to execute upon invoking the function. Then we have an example of a function that takes two parameters, a and b. When you call this function, you would have to pass two values into it. And when it was invoked, the code indented below it would execute. And then we have a function that takes two parameters and returns the sum of those two parameters. So you would pass two numbers into it and it would return the sum of those two numbers. Or since Python is a dynamically typed language, I could pass two strings in here and it would return the concatenation of those two strings. And if I jump into my development environment, you'll see that I have a blank slate and we are going to create our first function. So I'm going to type the def keyword and I am going to call this function print_greeting. And we are not going to put any parameters in this first function. So after the parentheses, I'm going to put a colon and hit enter. And you'll see that Visual Studio Code has indented this because anything after a colon needs to be indented. And all we are going to do is have this print a message that says, hello, welcome to functions. And then somewhere below this, I would call this function by simply typing the function name and a pair of parentheses. And now when I run this, we will get the output down here, hello, welcome to functions. To break this down, this will be our function signature. In this case, we only have a name. We do not have any parameters, and this function is not returning anything. And this here would be the body of the function. And then this here is how you invoke a function by simply typing its name and then a pair of parentheses. And if there was any parameters, we would put those parameters inside the parentheses. So let's create a function that actually takes parameters and then does something with them. So we will create a add function and we'll give it two parameters, a and b. And then below it, we will tell it to print a plus b. And then down below this somewhere, we can call our add function. And if we pass the values 5 and 10 here, when I run this, this is going to call the add function and pass 5 and 10 in as the arguments. And then the function itself is going to print 5 plus 10 to the console. So down here, we get the output 15. And if we wanted, instead of having the function output this sum, we could have it instead return this sum. So I could have it return a plus b. And then down here, I could put this in a variable called result. So now when I do this, where I have a variable equals and then a function, the function is going to be invoked. And whatever the return from that function is what gets assigned to this variable. And then below that, I can call the print function and pass the result variable in as my argument. And when I run this, we still get the output 15, but this time the function is returning this value and putting it in this variable, and then we are printing out the variable. In the upcoming videos, we will look at many different ways to pass parameter values into functions, many ways to return values from functions, and just how to use functions in general.